And I can't think of a better guest to have on a day like this than Chris Stigall. You can find him on Twitter at Chris Stigall, and you can listen to his podcast, which I really enjoyed, The Chris Stigall Show. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I had so much more to say about Oprah, though.
I know.
Okay, if you want to do other stuff, fine.
So, Chris, I actually just listened to your last podcast where I believe the title was We'll Never Be Royals, and I skipped forward a little bit to get to the royal part, and I think I skipped over your entire segment because it was about a minute long talking about the interview last night.
Yeah, I actually led the day with that. It's to me, she wants to be the Duchess of BLM. Meghan does. That's basically what that was. That was a great big audition for BLM last night, in my opinion. I mean, don't you think, Grace? Every family has a Meghan Markle. I think every family has one.
And I'm assuming what you mean is, a partner who comes in, and it could be man or woman, who comes in and kind of turns the family against each other.
That's exactly right. It's not a gender thing. It's whoever it is, every family has one. The person marries into the family and then convinces that person that their family is no good and they need to leave the family and join them to see the error of the family's ways, and turns that person against the entire family.
Yeah.
There's one in every family.
But Chris, I feel blessed to say this, there's not one in my immediate family, and I just think the Irish Catholics in us, we would not allow it. If someone started up with that, we'd be like, nope, you're out of here. You're not coming to the swap this year.
I have one. I have this very thing happened in my family, and I'll just leave it at that. It was a woman, a second marriage for one of my relatives, and he just went lunatic. I mean, he was close to all of us, and she managed to convince him that every last one of us, including his kids from his first marriage, were all no good. And he started a new family and turned his back on every last one of us and has nothing to do with the one of us today because of her. And it's the craziest thing, but I've watched it. It's insane.
Well, Chris,
it can happen.
He probably didn't realize how trapped he was in your family, and now he realizes it.
Yeah, well, we didn't have any kind of butlers either. That's the other thing. At no point were there any kind of handmaids or people dressing us or anything like that. No.
All right, Chris, but I do want to ask you about some more serious stuff here. The bill, the COVID relief bill, I know that you follow this closely, and I got to say, pretty amazing that Joe Manchin said he wasn't going to pass this unless it was, a bipartisan support. It clearly was not. But Chris, I'm watching the local news last night, and I hear them giving an update on this, and they described it, and I'm paraphrasing, but they basically said, the politicians put their differences aside and came together to pass this COVID relief bill. And I'm thinking to myself, not one Republican voted for this.
You're right. Yeah, do you get the sense that Joe Manchin, I wonder if, do the people of West Virginia feel like suckers yet? I mean, when do the people of West Virginia wake up and say, okay, this guy's just played us like absolute fiddles? He promises time and again to be the guy that's not going to allow the Democrats to ride herd over the rest of them, and he does it anyway. He goes along with them every time, and he does the thing that he promised he wouldn't do, which was he wouldn't allow this to go forward without Republican buy-in. There was no Republican buy-in, to your point.
And Chris, to your point, I think the only people who probably feel more ridiculous than people who voted for Joe Manchin are the evangelicals who voted for Biden and now feel like, oh, he's not really holding up his end of the bargain with abortion. It's like, who could have seen this coming?
Yeah, I read a stat yesterday. I haven't done the math on it, but it sounds roughly correct. I mean, if you took this $1.9 trillion and spent it directly on the 330 million of us, men, women, and children in this country, that's something like $6,000 a piece that each of us would get if that went directly to us. But of course, we know it's not.
No, and I was reading something today that was, it was a liberal spin of trying to break it down so that you could really classify it all as COVID relief. And it said if you count government aid and school aid as part of the COVID relief. And I was thinking to myself, government aid, that's kind of a vague statement. That could be anything.
Yeah. I mean, these schools, Grace, my kids' schools are just now, as of this week, starting to flirt with opening for the kids that are literally failing. That's their criteria. This week, my public schools in my community are opening for the kids that are literally bombing out, and then they will start to slowly open in the next couple of weeks for everybody else. But mind you, they have been closed since the beginning of the year, spending nothing operationally. I mean, Yes, the teachers' salaries and things. No physical buildings or structures have been opened. They're all sitting on piles of cash. The school districts across the country are sitting on piles of cash, not to mention the first round of stimulus that was infused into a lot of the states and their systems, and now another round. I think you've got school districts across the country sitting on mountains of money, and I've heard of a couple of districts, not many, Naperville, Illinois being one, where they're actually issuing refund checks to some property taxpayers because they're not spending the money. They're not using it. And boy, that would be a justifiable and smart use of people's taxpayer dollars. I think that's what a lot of school districts ought to do. Like, where's this money going? Where's it being spent? Because they're not spending it on teaching our kids in person.
And talk about squeaky wheel gets the grease. I mean, you're going to send the kids who are failing. How many good students are at home going, Mom, I really got to bomb this next test. I really want to get back into the school. I really want to see my friends. I really want to see my friends again, Mom. I'm just warning you, this is going to be a big F from me.
The thing parents are not talking about, my kids are good kids. They're smart kids. They're good students. They're all three. I have three of them, and they're so unenthused, uninspired, uninterested. And it's become such a joke. Teachers have a threshold they've got to meet, too. They can't just let their kids bomb out. So you know what they're doing now? This kind of joke, hey, kids, turn in your stuff. And it becomes this kind of herding cats thing where, well, you didn't turn in your assignment from 2 weeks ago. Hurry up and turn it in. There's no deadlines. Everything's just kind of, it's this sort of amorphous, get everything in, and everybody kind of gets an A. Everybody passes.
It's like a pass-fail mentality. Like you just have to reach the bare minimum.
It's awful. It's awful. So there's no standards. The kids know there's no standards, so there's no urgency, so there's no interest. It's a disaster. They'll write about this sometime as the lost, year or two, and it won't be good.
Speaking of disasters, Chris, you talk a lot about H.R. 1, the For the People Act. Tell the audience a little bit about that and why you think it is so terrible.
Well, federalizing our elections is something the Democrats want to do desperately. They love the idea of not requiring signature verification. They love the idea of mail-in ballots. Here I live in Pennsylvania, and here in Pennsylvania, our Secretary of State and our governor and our Supreme Court were role models for playing the system. That is the idea of doing away with signature verification, deadlines, and basically the collection of ballots outside of the supervisory role of a traditional election site, a polling place. Drop-off centers, drop-off locations, drop boxes.
Right.
I say that this bill, in effect, basically treats a ballot like a Domino's Pizza coupon in the mail. I mean, that's what they want to do. They want to treat our ballots like coupons you get in the mail. They want to, they want to federalize this. They want to decentralize it. The less verification, the bigger room for cheating. That's really what this boils down to, and they want to federalize it so states can't meddle in verifying and proving that you are who you say you are.
Right. I saw someone said the other day, people are having doubts about the security of our elections. Let's make it permanent. And I thought that's exactly what this bill is doing.
Yep. That's it. It is nothing more than, air mailing ballots. I don't know how they do it where you live, but, neighboring New Jersey, they just mail everybody a ballot. I know Nevada and several other states, just if you're on the rolls, you get it. Have they purged the rolls of dead people? No. We just mail out ballots. Wherever they land, whoever gets them, I'll collect them, you collect them, she collects them, grab armfuls of them, drop them off here, drop them off there. It's chaos. And, of course, it's going to be rife with fraud. And when people can't supervise, and COVID was such a perfect storm for it. There was never a better opportunity for this to be sold and pitched. Oh, look, we did it. It worked. Huzzah. Hundreds of thousands of ballots being counted and handled. The chain of custody was a mess, and we used COVID and social distancing as a reason why. Well, and now President Asterisk is fumbling his way through a $1.9 trillion stimulus bill.
Yeah, he's so proud of it, too. Chris Stigall, you guys can catch his podcast at The Chris Stigall Show. One more question before you go, Chris. Thoughts on Andrew Cuomo? He came out on Sunday and said he is not resigning. All I could think was the song from Dreamgirls, I'm not going. And he is just putting up a fight. Do you think that it's the end of the road for him politically?
I don't know how it isn't, but I do want to know this. You're a very, very tough woman. I know this much about you, and I know this. I know that if I came up to you and I put my hands on you or tried to touch you or said something, harassing to you, and you called me on it, and I said, "Hey, that's just my culture. It's my way, Grace. That's just that you know me." I don't think that would, and appropriately, it shouldn't fly. I don't think in 2021 that's the way we tolerate people behaving.
You're
not allowed to get away with that anymore.
No, I totally agree. And I think that these women, most of whom worked underneath him, he was their boss. They're so credible and they're so strong and they're coming out and they're telling their stories. And I'm just amazed that I heard the Senate leader the state Senate leader in New York say, if we get one more woman, then he should resign. It's like, wait a second, the first three weren't good enough. Like, these are credible women who all worked for him. They were in a really tough position. And I'm just glad that they're speaking out and they're holding his feet to the fire. But like you said, I don't think he's going to go anywhere himself. I think they used to talk about Trump. They'd say they're going to have to drag him out of there. I think they're going to have to drag Cuomo out of there.
I think you're right, but if he's allowed to stay, every woman who takes issue with this or brings it to light in the future, he's the standard. And his standard is, hey, it's my culture, it's my way, everybody knows me, it's what I do. Well, hey, is this Mad Men? Is it 1960? I mean, because that's what guys used to do, too, slap women on the butt and say, hey, sweetheart, go fetch me a drink. I mean, we don't do that anymore. That's not considered okay anymore. We've learned we don't do that.
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just to your point, one of the cuts that I played last week, he was saying, oh, that's just my culture. That's how I greet people. Just last week, I was with a bunch of, I think he was with a pastor or a clergyman or something, and I was hugging him, and I'm thinking, forget about the inappropriateness of it all. What about COVID? What about the social distancing?
Right. Yeah, he outed himself as not adhering to his own rules. That's exactly right. Great catch.
Follow the science, Andy. Chris Stigall, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone should follow you at Chris Stigall. You guys can read his stuff at Town Hall and definitely listen to his podcast. They're usually like an hour or an hour and a half long. They're so funny and really easy to listen to on your morning drive-in, so make sure you do that. Thank you for joining the show, Chris.
You're nice to invite me. Thank you, Grace.
All right, guys, if you haven't tried Super Beets Heart Chews, you are missing out. I don't want to reveal this and let the whole office know, but I actually found a stash of Super Beets in this office, Jared.
Don't be holding out.
I'm holding out. I already had one this morning. This bag is empty, but I got a full bag somewhere in this office. I love my Super Beets Heart Chews. They combine non-GMO beets with a powerful new ingredient, grapeseed extract. The grapeseed extract is used in Super Beets, and it's been clinically shown to be 2 times as effective at supporting normal blood pressure as a healthy lifestyle alone. Better blood pressure means more energy the way nature intended, without the jittery caffeine or stimulants. I am guilty of, getting a little bit of a slump in the afternoon, going for that second cup of coffee, and it just doesn't do it. It makes you kind of anxious and on edge. You want to go for a delicious Super Beets. They're pre-wrapped. You can have them anytime, anywhere, and they taste great. Do what I did. Support your heart health with delicious Super Beets Chews. Get your Super Beets Chews today at getsuperbeets.com/grace. When you buy 2 bags, they'll throw in a third for free. And that third comes in handy when the office eats the first 2 bags and you save the third bag in a secret hiding spot. That's getsuperbeets.com/grace. getsuperbeets.com/grace. I see you guys on the lines. We'll take your calls in the next segment. And for the rest of the show, 844-500-4242. This is The Grace Curley Show.
You're listening to The Grace Curley Show.